a nice one, Dave. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Engineers Out Filters podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Thompson, and tonight I'm just drinking that water. I feel a sickness coming on, and I'm trying to fight it off. So like my body cannot be bothered to, dispose of alcohol right now. I got to keep it fresh.
Fucking coward. I'm Joseph DeGrandchamp, and I'm drinking Mirror Universe Hazy IPA. See, now I can actually like hold it up. Well,
it's a cool can.
Ooh, I like that.
And it is actually like the letters are wrong, and it took me way too long to figure out what it said when it was in the shelf.
Oh my god!
Like, because like they're mirrored like up and down like here.
Right. They use the word mirror to affect.
But like mirrors also like the R's are backward. It's fucking weird. It took me way too long to figure out what it said, and the label, like the logo in the corner, like the brewery logo, is backwards too. It's a weird ass can.
Imagine looking at that when you're already drunk and just being like, "What the hell am I drinking?"
and then I read like the government warning to make sure that wasn't backwards either. I just had to know what was going on. But
funny.
no.
Sorry, what kind of beer is it?
It's a hazy IPA.
Ooh, I like those.
The description. Ooh, the description's really good. It's a hazy IPA brewed with oats, wheat, barley, and too many hops. Which no such thing as too many hops, but
I don't know. I had Dogfish had 120-minute IPA, and that is.
But that's not the amount of hops. That's just how long it's dry hopped, isn't it? Is it dry hopped, right?
Yeah, but like I don't know. All I know is I did not like that.
Well, my name's Gabe, and I've got the Keweenaw Brewing Company Point Trail Ale. It's actually my third one, so I'm keeping up with, or I'm catching up for Jacob. So that, gotta even it out, right?
Yeah, I suppose so. And you gotta drink it while you can.
Yeah, and this is
honestly.
my last well, we actually were just there, but this is the last six-pack I'm gonna get of it, which is kind of sad.
Yeah.
We were just talking about KBC last night. We were out with Cooper, and he was talking about how he doesn't like the KBC that much, and it's like
what?
Their beer, like the place is awesome. Their beer isn't like the best, I'll admit that, but I would
it's
argue
$3 a pint.
That's what I'm saying. For the price, it's worth it, and for the location. But I would also say I would argue that Widowmaker and Point Trail are actually like very good beers.
I mean, me and Joe had 2 Point Trails for $6. That's a 7% beer. Like, it gets you there. It's cheap as fuck.
Even besides, I would still say it's like solid beer though. It tastes really good. And, like,
I would say it's significantly better on tap though. Like in a can. I mean, it's still good, beer. But yeah, something about it.
You can get KBC 6-packs most places though. Like you can get it. I've seen it in like Total Wine.
Have you?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's still
I thought it was
within
just a
reach,
Michigan thing. That's good enough.
I'll have to keep an eye out here in Connecticut.
Connecticut.
And I'm Dayton, and I'm finishing off the last of my PBR before I head back to Michigan for the holidays. So they got new can art this time, so it's like this weird like r/surreal memes like artwork on the can. It's really weird. So like last winter it was like the Japanese style artwork, which was pretty cool. And yeah, now it's just like really weird. Like I don't know what this guy was on when he was drawing this, but absolute nuts.
It's a cool design though. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, welcome back to the podcast, everyone. We were on episode 50. Yay!
Woot woot.
I know a lot of podcasts. Exactly. A lot of podcasts get celebrate the 50s and 100s and stuff. We didn't really plan anything, so it's just gonna be a normal episode of the podcast.
I feel like 52 should be the big one because that's
I
a year
agree.
of content.
I think 52 is cool.
For the people who are listening right now, though, it's not just any other normal podcast for us, though. Like we're recording this on Twitch right now, actually.
And we have someone watching.
Cuban Mamba 8. Thank you.
Yeah, shout out. I don't know who that is.
They probably went to podcasts or whatever the category is and found the lowest amount of views. I'm like, oh. Let's see what garbage they're churning out.
Yeah, it's our first test stream. So we're gonna start doing this every week, and then I think hopefully we'll put up the video on YouTube so people can actually see our faces as opposed to just a static picture on YouTube. So
the photoshopped ones on Instagram.
Yeah. But it is a multiple of 5 for episodes. We'll be doing STEM topics again tonight. But before we get into that, just a reminder, you can find our show every Monday on Spotify and iTunes and YouTube. And then you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at EWF Podcast for updates on all our shenanigans. Mostly the Instagram because we post some dumb pictures on there. So, but yeah, let's get into the show. We're doing STEM topics. Dayton, we got a big one. You started off.
Wait, is this the video that I was talking to you about?
The video.
All right. So for the listeners,
$2 says it's a Veritasium video.
Fuck you,
Gabe.
Yeah. Fucking surprise.
Fuck you. Okay. So anyway, yes, it's Veritasium. I watch it. I watch the channel. It's great. But anyway, he just released like a 20-minute long video on how to slow down aging, pretty much. And I clicked on it. I expected to know everything. I was like, oh yeah, telomeres, longer your telomeres are, the older you are, blah, blah, blah. The only way we can get around it is by like lengthening the telomeres somehow. And boy, was I wrong. So he's talking to this Harvard research scientist, this geneticist dude. I can't remember his name, but he has a book published. And he's been doing experiments on rats and mice, and specifically like how to, one, speed up aging. So like he took a 4-month-old rat and he like injected it with like this
some genetic thing,
some like compound or something like that like stressed the cells, and then that made it like accelerate its aging. And then actually there's like another compound that if you inject it into like the cells as well, then it can actually reverse aging.
It's a depressant, or it straight up reverses?
It straight up reverses aging.
It like
okay.
It makes this, it like refreshes all your cells essentially.
Yeah. So like it starts your cells back at like 0 instead of starting them at like 70 years old or whatever. So like in like the one example, there was a rat that was I think like 2 years old, which like for rats that's like pretty old, I guess. And they injected it with like this
Wasn't
compound
it blind,
or whatever.
Right? It was the
this is a
one,
different one. This is a different one.
Oh, okay.
And he injected the 2-year-old rat with the like the anti-aging or like the reverse aging compound, and the rat actually ran faster and further than a 4-month-old rat, which is like peak age for a rat. So
this thing was juiced.
So you're telling me if I just inject myself with some compound, I'll be young again or younger?
Yeah. So essentially, what the science is. So people have thought for a long time when you age, the reason that your body starts to break down because your DNA is taking damage. Right?
Well, it
Like
doesn't copy itself completely over, right? So like it misses some copies.
Yeah, like makes mistakes while it's copying, or like was Zayton saying, like the telomeres are getting shorter, which is like the protective caps on the ends of your DNA, stuff like that. And so, over the course of time, you get more mutations, you get more susceptible to getting disease and stuff, and you just eventually break down. What this guy discovered is the real issue is not in the DNA itself, but how the DNA is organized. So without getting too into it, like everyone's heard of chromosomes, right? Chromosome is essentially just DNA coiled up super tight into a shape, into that classic like X shape we all know, right? But if you zoom in on that, the DNA is actually coiled around these things called histones, which are then coiled into the chromosome. So what this researcher said was the DNA isn't losing information, it's the organization of those histones. Whenever you duplicate the cell, they're moving slightly off.
Histones are proteins, correct?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or if like there's sun damage and you like kind of breaks up the histones, when they put it back together, it's slightly different. And it's called the epigenome. It's like the organization of the DNA within the cell. That's where information is being lost. So what this compound is doing is like reversing cells almost back to stem cells, but not quite, and thus like resetting where the histones are, and then cells remember the kind of cells they are better, for lack of a better term, and they're quote unquote young again. So it's really interesting stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So
fucking
how
wild.
does the compound impact how the proteins move, or is it how the DNA replicates that is what's changed?
I mean, they didn't go into that much detail.
Yeah.
Everyone's like it worked. But they did say it's dangerous though, because Joseph mentioned there was one mouse that was blind, and they used this compound on the retinas to refresh the retinas to be younger, and it worked. It was able to see again. But he said if you go back too far to stem cells, it'll just get a tumor and then it'll die from cancer.
Yeah.
Because stem cells won't know what to stop replicating.
Right.
And he was going into how there's 4 different compounds, and that they use 3 of them for like the rat's retina to like reverse its aging.
Yeah.
And it's like the other one is known to like cause like tumors and cancer like a lot. So they avoided that one, and it happened to work. But it's really cutting edge, and they're obviously still working on it. So
Yeah. And then, so off of that kind of discussion, he also talked about, how you can slow down aging. And this is talking about there's these certain genes in your genetic code in your DNA that under certain conditions will allow you to live longer. It'll kind of like turn on a security system, like, okay, preserve the body, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote them down so we could talk about it. And Dayton claims he's already doing a lot of these. We'll see.
I think I am. I think I am.
So number 1 was avoid DNA damage. So this mostly, I assume, talks about like ultraviolet radiation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's probably some other things I'm not thinking of off the top of my head.
Radiation.
Just radiation in general.
Yeah.
Just protecting your DNA from radiation. Number 2 is eat less. So, from what I understood, the reason this works is because when your body's hungry, I think your body assumes that you're in danger, so it tries to preserve you. Yeah, and that helps you live longer. And that's kind of the theme of all these. Third one is eat less protein. I don't remember the explanation behind this one.
I think it's a similar thing.
Yeah, so I think it's like your body senses when like you're eating protein, and then that kind of, because the entire thing is like when you're in like the growth, your body's in 2 stages. It's either in like growth and reproduce, or it's in like survive, and like that's like all basically
stay stable.
Yeah. So like when you're eating a lot of protein, then your body is like in like that whole growth mentality, and that's when it's like copying your cells a lot, and that's where like the errors come in.
So you need to be a scrawny boy to be
not necessarily
or alive for long.
Not necessarily, but let me finish these. So the third one is high intensity interval training. Again, your body's getting uncomfortable with the amount it's working.
Wait,
so it tries
that's
to protect
HIIT,
you.
right? Isn't there like a bunch of workouts and shit for that?
Oh yeah.
It's just one type of training.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the last 2 are be cold and be hot.
Or be hot.
Or be
Be
hot.
uncomfortably
not
hot
at the same
or be
time.
uncomfortably cold.
Yeah.
Well, I'd be cold a lot.
Yeah, living in Michigan and Minneapolis.
Yeah.
I totally slaughtered that.
Minneapolis.
I couldn't get it out.
Not below.
Better than this YouTuber we were watching said Minneapolis.
Oh.
Put it like an extra N.
Yeah,
It was
Minneapolis.
Okay.
Minneapolis, yeah. Shit out of here.
That's a little bit
But it's interesting, like, for me, like, all these things are like, or most of them anyway, are making your body uncomfortable. And when your body's uncomfortable, it's like signaling to the, your DNA or whatever. It's like, hey, the body's uncomfortable. You're in a danger situation. I'm gonna try to protect you, even though you're not actually in a danger situation.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how you end up living longer, by activating those safety genes or whatever they're called.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Basically
Osmosis
just means-
Jones helping you out.
It
Osmosis
basically
Jones.
means poor people live longer because you can't get AC in the summer, so you're gonna be hot all the time.
You
You
know how
can't
much
get heat in the winter, so
stressors
you're
they have,
cold.
though?
You don't
Yeah.
eat. Yeah, but yeah, that obviously that counteracts it. But
That's interesting. It seems like a healthy amount of stress literally is healthy.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
I think that is for
theoretically.
every person though. Like, work is supposed to be challenging, so it stresses you for like mentally, I guess, to like be mentally
Yeah.
happy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a
Yeah.
good level of stress, but there's also like
you can't be
No.
too comfortable.
right so much that you're
Mhm.
like, fuck my life,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the question is, will Dade live longer because he's intermittent fasting and a vegan?
No, he's gonna not live as long because he's an idiot, and he's gonna fucking crash his mountain bike again and get
and
another
he has scar on the
concussion.
other side of his face.
Yeah. So, I mean, so Jacob, going off of like the points that were listed, right? So the
Yeah.
first one was avoid UV damage.
DNA damage.
I would say that's one that I'm definitely not doing. I am very bad about applying sunscreen when I go outside. So
Sunscreen is an ultralight.
yeah. Yeah, big X for that one. Next one, eat less. I think I do that by intermittent fasting.
Yeah,
And
because
then-
you have that time in the day where your body thinks like really really hungry.
Yeah, yes, because like by only eating like one meal a day in like an hour, then I have 23 hours of the day where I'm just fasted, where I'm not eating
Yeah.
anything. And then they eat less protein. I mean, people eat way too much protein anyway. Like Jacob, you
Yeah.
know this. Like,
Yeah.
you don't need like 180 grams of protein a day. Like, if you're
You
just
don't need
gonna
to eat meat every single meal.
Oh yeah, you do.
Like
I had pulled pork sandwiches for dinner. Yeah, I do.
Hey, that wasn't every meal though.
No, I
Yeah.
I eat meatless breakfasts usually. So
Okay.
yeah,
And
people
then
just eat way too much protein in general.
yeah. And then the either be hot or be cold. I would say that I'm a lot colder than normal, or like that I tend to find myself cold rather than hot.
What's your apartment set to?
69.
65.
Ooh.
Damn. Me and Joseph are at 69. Even I
Yeah.
get a little bit cold sometimes.
Yeah.
it's a good cold where it's like a slight chill that it's like worth it to put you want to put a blanket on, but
Mhm.
like if you're moving around, you're not bad at all. So,
Yeah. I mean, and then I have like a heated mattress pad, which is nice because then I
Oh,
can
yeah,
keep
I
my
forgot about that.
apartment colder.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then during the night I drop it down to like 55, I think.
You have a programmable thermostat?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty sick.
Those
Yeah.
are nice.
Yeah, saves me money, dude.
Mm-hmm.
What about that high intensity interval training?
Oh, yeah. Is that even like a question? Like I play soccer twice a week, and then I'll play volleyball, which I wouldn't consider high intensity
No.
interval training.
It's called
And
standing
then-
and then hitting things after you jump
Yeah,
every
Yeah,
30
and then-
seconds or so.
and then
Sometimes
I
you don't
go
even
with-
jump.
I jump. I'm a blocker, dude. I block
okay.
balls.
Yeah,
You're a
front,
taller
yeah.
dude, so that makes sense.
Yeah, dude. I get at least like a few blocks a game.
Nice.
I'm
He's so proud
I'm
of
something.
it.
I'm something that
Do you-
that is talked
You ever
about at our gym.
spike a dumb bitch in their face?
Nah, dude. I generally don't spike that hard because it's like rec league, so
So?
I don't want to unleash the guns.
Just some 35-year-old like woman. You're like, boom.
If it's a full team of dudes, then I will. But I don't know. I just feel slightly bad about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, hit. I think I'm set on. So
All right. Well, Dayton theoretically will live the longest out of all of us.
theoretically,
My money's
that's,
not on it.
That's not accounting for the stupid things that Joseph is hinting at.
Hinting at, I blatantly said it. You crash your bike.
In other news, Dayton's gonna die at 24.
Oh
Did we
man,
talk about this when we played most likely to on one of our drunk episodes? Is like who's most
Yeah.
likely to die first or whatever.
I think it was a
We all
tie
said
between
It was
Dayton
me
and Josh.
I think it was me and if we're talking group, yes. And
Yeah, Josh was there
podcasters,
too.
it was me and Dayton.
Yeah.
Well, because we played that with the whole house.
Oh yeah.
That was the first we got drunk.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
things I got voted for that I'm not proud of. I think
That's
that's
because
good.
Dayton fucking stacked the deck.
what it is.
What?
It's Dayton's fault.
What? I definitely did not do that.
Asshole.
So back to the topic. So like, is it morally or ethically sound, do you think, to use this, process of, reverting cells back to quote unquote young cells on humans?
Ooh, you're talking
it's like
the ethical stuff.
not even a way to like treat a disease or treat like a broken, I don't know, but like straight up like I want to feel younger. I have a lot of money, and just inject the shit everywhere, and then I'm young again.
See, I feel like a lot of this kind of comes down to the question of like, can we and then should we, right? Like, so
Yeah.
Mhm.
if you have the
Classic
technology,
science.
for the most part, I feel like the answer is why not? Like, if you've got the means, like, and it makes people's lives better, why would you not do it?
Because if people live longer, we'll run out of resources faster.
But I feel like that would just correlate, in general, first world countries to less kids. Like if they know that
Possibly.
their kid's going to be like, it would take a few generations, obviously. I don't think people would know how long they would live, but after a while, they'd be like, all right, well, I'm going to be around till, I don't know, 150, and my kid's going to be around till 150. Like, why would I have another one? You know.
But that's another thing too. The guy was talking about in the episode date where he's like, "Can we do this twice? Can we do it 3 times,
Right.
5 times,
They
100
don't
times?
know.
Like, what if you could just keep doing this procedure on yourself every, 20
And
years,
just live forever.
theoretically,
I feel like your brain would fucking quit.
maybe, but
I don't know.
They
You see
don't- they
people
don't
who are
know.
like 85 and 90 and their brains just aren't. They just aren't there. You know what I mean?
But
Mhm.
that comes a lot from a sedentary lifestyle more than anything.
Oh, absolutely. But if you're 115, are you gonna be sedentary? Or are you gonna be active? You know?
Well,
I
I
don't
mean,
know,
dude,
well,
if your
if
muscles
your
are
body's
good,
young,
yeah.
yeah,
I
if
guess
your body's
so.
young,
Yeah.
good.
I don't know. I guess that'd be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I don't know. At least for me, like I'm concerned more about the
Environmental
overpopulation issue. So like if everyone is able to do this, like if it's cheap enough for everyone to do this, then like yeah, it's gonna be a disaster, like globally if everyone's alive and it just keeps on stacking up and up and up and up. 'Cause there's
And also
not
think
enough
about like
resources.
retirement. Think about retirement. You have to work way longer
Mhm.
to have enough money to live for longer. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
or you have to have way
true.
more money if you want to retire at 65 still, but you plan to live to be 200. Like, it's just
Mhm.
economically, how does that work?
I don't
Yeah.
think our system is built for the understanding that people live longer than like 85 or of the average ages.
No, it's really not. I mean, we all read the book, The Postmortal,
Mhm.
or at least, wait,
Well,
Dave, you didn't read
I
it.
didn't.
I
we-
you and Jacob,
You
you and
two
I read
read
it
it.
because that was
Oh,
an-
just me and you, because that was when we were OTLs. Sorry.
yeah.
Dude, I didn't
Um,
even read the book when I was coming in freshman. Like, fuck that.
Yeah, so and that's what this book talks about. So like Dayton and I had to read this book for orientation, Michigan Tech orientation. We were leaders, and it's about a society that discovers the cure for aging, and most everyone gets it. And yeah, a lot of shit goes really bad.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, they run out of room, they run out of resources. Like,
Mhm.
it's just our society is not built to handle that many people who are still healthy and like need to work and need to eat and stuff.
Mhm.
You guys ever
Yeah.
watch that shitty movie In Time?
No, but I know what the
No.
premise is.
Like the premise of the movie is
Justin Timberlake in it.
you stop aging after 20 or something. It's like 20 or 25, I think. You stop aging, and the currency, like money, is time.
Oh,
so like you
I
can
have
live as
seen
long
that.
as you as possible, but you need to have enough money to live or whatever.
It was like a cup of coffee is like 2 minutes or something like that.
Right. So like
That
yeah,
was-
things that you want to buy cost money, but you live as long as how much you're worth essentially. So
Well, it's like, the way I understood was like things cost time. They don't cost money. Like, there's no money anymore. It's just everyone.
Right,
is-
but
they're
I'm saying,
spending
like,
the amount of time they have left.
you live as long as what you're worth, right? Like you're
'Cause
if
you
you're
get
worth
paid in
20
time.
years, you can live for 20 years, but then you have to start buying food and rent and
Yeah.
stuff, and then it's a
Yeah.
interesting premise. They kind of fucked up the rest of the movie, but it's an interest. It turned into a bank heist movie. They started stealing time. It's like
Yeah.
that's fun.
Yeah.
But the premise is cool.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and in the video too, he mentioned like, what if only the rich people can afford this? That will create even a larger disparity than there is now. And like, there's a lot of
Mhm.
It's already bad now. It's like
there's a lot of issues.
Yeah. Yeah, I almost wonder like if see, I'm gonna say this and I know there's gonna be like a ton of rebuttals to this, but what if what if when you got hypothetically if you were to get this and it like just made you sterile. So then, like you could get it with the exception like with knowing
Yeah.
that you would become sterile and that you couldn't have kids.
Interesting.
So,
Alright,
I mean,
what's up
of
with having?
course-
What if you have kids and then get it?
that's what I was
Yeah,
gonna say.
yeah.
First rebuttal,
So-
you just have the kid first, and
Yeah.
then you do the procedure.
Yeah, but then there's also the rebuttal of okay, but then there's probably going to be black market, scientists or doctors that somehow manage to get it without having this sterilization as
Yeah.
well, or find out how to reverse it or stuff like that. But I don't know, it's just
Yeah.
a thought.
I don't know.
Yeah. Back to that book. I really like that book, by the way, The Postmortal. If you want an interesting read, check it out. But like, the main character's job is to kill people who are sick of living. Like, they're
Mhm.
people who took the cure and they're like, I've lived for like 200 years, just fuck, I want to die. So they hire him to come and like shoot them
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like it's like a legit job. Like, it's not like it's not like black market job. It's like that's literally what his job is. I forget the term for it. It's like
Executioner.
no, it's got like a fancy name. It's like something specialist. I can't remember.
Death
But-
specialist.
Specialist.
Wasn't it death
it was like
specialist?
it was like retirement specialist. Something. It was something more like above the line than death specialist.
Oh,
But anyway.
Murderer.
murder,
If you
It
guys-
was funny because
cold-blooded
like
killer.
that job would need to exist in that kind of society.
If
right?
you guys
'Cause the
could
people
live
can't
forever, how long would you guys live for?
I think it depends on how good
don't
my
know.
body is.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I don't want to live forever in a wheelchair.
Okay, but if your mind's still sharp, we had that conversation before. It's like, would you rather be in a wheelchair but have a sharp mind, or like have a great body but like the mind of like an 80 or 85 or a 90-year-old? We had that conversation.
Yeah, I take the mine, but it's still not good.
Yeah.
I'd take the bullet.
I'd take the bullet.
If you're in a
Right,
wheelchair, you're gonna have
right
to,
between the blinkers.
Now, if I could like lock in at 30 and then stay that for another 100 years, that'd probably be enough.
100 years.
That's just
It's a long
I
time
feel
to
like-
work a dead end job.
It's so long.
I feel like after a while you just be like, fuck, I'm still working so I can survive. Like, I've done this
See-
for 80 years and I'm still 30. You know, like you haven't
I
moved.
almost wonder if that were to become a thing, if like the workload would change. Like if instead of working 40 hours a week with the the expectation that you would work for 40, 50 years maybe,
Oh, it gets sparsed
then
out.
then you work 20 hours a week and you work for like 100 years.
I'd do that.
I bet UBI would probably get implemented too.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
stands for
Something like it.
Universal Basic Income for everyone who doesn't know.
Yeah,
what it stands
sorry.
for.
Yeah.
The other funny thing, sorry, I keep remembering things from the book that I liked, but another thing that was lawyers invented cyclical marriages.
Yeah.
So you marry someone for only 40 years and then you are divorced because people didn't want to be married for like 200 years. So
it makes
they
sense.
they invented marriages that only have a certain time limit.
Yeah, I don't think our society right now is like built for people to live that long.
No.
Like,
Well, it's
I
not,
don't think
after-
except-
humans are even built to live that long.
No, absolutely not. Like biologically,
Well,
no.
I mean, like even this, like mentally and stuff.
Right, but after a while, like I'd get bored. You know, like the whole
I mean,
point
but,
of life
like,
is to
you-
keep taking those steps. You know.
You think of developing countries, and some of them have, life expectancies in like their high 30s, low 40s, and like that used to be pretty common for everyone, right? Before like health improvements and
Before even civilization, it was way lower than that. It'd be like,
Yeah,
you made it to
yeah, so,
30,
like-
you're fucking old.
what's the problem there is that this would drastically change life expectancies in an incredibly short amount of time, almost kind of similar to how like the technology boom has happened, where like we've went from having a smartphone that, or not even a smartphone, just like no cell phone, to the smartphones that are more powerful than computers were 5 years ago or 10 years ago in our pockets in like the span of 20 years. And we don't know the potential impacts of that yet, except I feel like this whole life expectancy thing is kind of like parallels that, in the fact that it's happening so quick. We don't know what the potential disadvantages of it are.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure.
That's interesting. On the same kind of vein of we can but should we, CRISPR.
Oh,
We talked about that on the podcast yet, but
I
It was
think we
in-
have. I
Yes.
vaguely
Michigan.
remember.
briefly. But there was an extra credit question on my biology exam today, so it'd be interesting to bring it up. But if you don't know what CRISPR is, essentially DNA/gene editing technology where you can go in
Mhm.
and delete or replace genes with other genes. And it's not, well, one scientist in China, without telling anybody, did it on humans.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah, but it worked.
well, it worked, but we don't know the side effects yet. But he, on these two twin girls, he basically, I don't know if he removed or replaced the gene, but he basically made them immune to HIV. And they're, still alive and they seem to be healthy and stuff. But people were pissed off because they're like, you didn't tell anybody you're doing this. We don't know if you got consent from the parents. This is super unethical. Like, the babies can't give consent to this. Also, if they have kids, their kids will have this. Like, because it'll just get passed down,
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw another thing where that same gene, well, now that they're immune to HIV, but they're also more susceptible to West Nile virus.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that that's
So,
a thing.
yes, they're immune to one thing now, but they're more.
I thought it
susceptible
was
to another.
I thought it was like sickle cell and there's another thing.
Malaria.
That's like, yeah, malaria. They
That's
also correlate.
that's a different thing, and that's actually super interesting. If we want to get into genetics a little bit, I'll give a quick thing.
You'll have to carry that entire conversation.
Yeah. No, it's a quick aside about sickle cell disease. So in Africa, there's a thing called sickle cell anemia, where basically it's a recessive trait. So you have to have a recessive gene from your mom and your dad, and then your blood cells turn a different shape, looks like a sickle, and they're not as instead of like a sphere,
circle.
whatever.
Oval
Circle.
with a little dimple in it.
Yeah.
An inner tube.
Yeah,
And
that's a
yeah.
good example. That's actually yeah. There you go.
And that because of the sickle shape, they cannot carry oxygen as well. So it's bad. But so as you guys know, if you have both, so that's if you have both recessive, you have sickle cell. If you have both dominant, you have regular blood cells, right? If you have one dominant and one recessive, you have regular blood cells, but you're also more resistant to malaria. It's if you're heterozygous, if you have one dominant, one
Right.
recessive. If you have
So
both recessive, you don't
It's
have that. If you have both
advantageous
dominant,
in
you
those
don't.
countries to be
Heterozygous.
heterozygous because you can resist malaria.
But the
But-
risk is if two heterozygous people have a baby, there's a 25%
20
chance
yeah.
the kid's gonna have sickle cell
You
and they're
get
probably gonna die.
fucked and can't can't transport oxygen very well.
Yeah, so it's super fascinating. Like usually it doesn't happen where the heterozygous is a different phenotype.
But it's because of the environment. That's what makes it so interesting.
Yeah.
Like it's advantageous to not be homogenous, right?
Yeah, and that's why that gene will probably not get like worked out of the population through natural selection because it is advantageous in some scenarios.
Right.
Wait, but what? How does it prevent or how does it make malaria not as you don't know?
I
don't
can't
remember.
tell you.
I just know it's very unique because usually the heterozygous and the double dominant work the same, because that's the
Okay.
gene that's expressed. But this is where the dominant and the heterozygous actually have different expressions.
Interesting.
Yeah, because theoretically in a, controlled situation, kind of, the sickle cell gene would eventually die out because no one who had it would live through
Yep.
natural selection.
Right.
But in this case, that actually wouldn't be true because people who have one of each are more resistant to that environment because malaria is very prevalent in Africa.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, so it's fascinating. And back to the CRISPR thing. Again, is it ethical? We don't know the long-term side effects because genes, we think they do this one thing, but they could do 10 things. So they might be responsible for turning on and off other genes. Like DNA is so fucking complicated. Like we can sequence it now, we can read it, but we don't know what it does
It's
or what
like
parts do what.
who's the monk who did the shit with the peas? What's his name? Mendel.
Fucking Mendel, yeah.
Yeah,
Mendelian
so-
genetics.
He got lucky, right? Because there was only 4 options. But like if you look at things that are considered like eye color or something that's a little bit more complicated, it isn't just a simple factor of like a dominant or recessive trait.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, to be fair, he didn't get lucky. He specifically chose pea pods because they were.
Right, but
those
I'm
specific
saying
traits,
like if he
but-
were, let's say he picked eye color, like it would be
Yeah.
significantly more complicated, and he wouldn't be able to find a correlation.
Or like skin color, because skin color actually is a gradient. It's like
Right.
based on the amount of, is it melanin
Yeah.
you have that's the darker your skin. So if you have one parent that's way darker than the other, the baby would be a mix between the two.
Right. So it's not just 4 fucking letters, little.
Yeah, it's not a
little
2 by
P and
2
big P
Punnett
that,
square.
you
The
know,
pennant squares or whatever. the
right.
fuck-
Punnett
Punnett
squares.
squares,
Yeah.
Punnett squares.
It's not as simple as Punnett squares as much as we'd like to believe.
Damn.
Yeah.
But that's what I learned in high school bio.
It's biology is weird, man.
I
'Cause
really
there's so
like
much
biology.
There's so much we don't understand, and yet it's how we work.
Yeah, it's crazy to think of like how like your body. I know for me in high school, like taking the class and like understanding how like I don't know, just how like photosynthesis works, right? You just like
Yeah.
think of the process, and that's happening how many times? Billions of times in one fucking plant. You could like rip off a leaf and be like, "Oops," and then it's been doing that a million times a second. You fucking killed it. Like I don't know, it just blows my mind how it's operating.
Yeah, I mean a lot of processes in the human body. I was gonna actually bring up another one, which is again related to DNA, is how our cells replicate DNA. And just like the fact that it just works and we can do it so fast and so accurately, you know? Like it's basically what happens is your DNA, you know, it's like I was telling you before, is like coiled around those
Histones.
histones. Thank you, I was spacing. And at various points, all at the same time, there's a little thing that comes in, an enzyme comes in and starts breaking it apart, right? But it's a helix, right? We all know that. So if you start breaking apart a helix, it's gonna get really stressed on on the other coil. So there's another enzyme that comes in and like breaks it and puts it back together, so it doesn't get too spun around, right? So now we have a little unzipped section that's happening all of the DNA, all at the same time. Then another enzyme comes in and sets up a little like start button essentially on the DNA, so that this other enzyme come in and start just chunk copying all of the bases, right? The A, C, T, G, you know.
What's the protein
Copies
that
all those.
or does the error checking? What's the name of that one?
That happens after. That might be polymerase, but I don't remember.
It sounds. I don't know. It's been forever since I took
DNA
biology.
polymerase is the one that adds on the stuff.
Yeah, I just remember
It
there's
might be
one that
also
like
that
goes
checks.
through and double checks everything. Like that
That's
part
what I'm
blows
saying,
my
yeah,
mind.
so-
Like your body has a spell checker. Like
Yeah, so after it like does this complicated process of making two sets of DNA and then proofreads everything, and if they find a mistake, it can just replace it with the right thing, you know.
which is what CRISPR
Like-
is based off of, isn't it? Like you can force it to proofread something you want.
Actually, no. CRISPR is actually was derived from bacteria as a way to fight off infections.
Oh, that's right. It like cuts shit out when it sees a virus.
Yep. And then it could, if it saw a new virus, it could create a new piece of DNA to fight it and then add it to the genome. And that was
Right.
kind of how we started applying that to humans.
Right.
Fucking crazy, man. But yeah, the fact that we can do like 50 nucleotides a second of replication on our DNA, and just your cells are
pretty
always
good.
dividing, and you're just constantly duplicating DNA, dividing the cell your entire life, and it very rarely makes a mistake. And when it does, it's a mutation, and usually doesn't do anything to you. Sometimes you
Sometimes
become
it
an
helps
X-Man,
you
but
out.
And you become
Yeah.
an X-Man.
yeah,
You can control storms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna
So
say where
fucking
you have
weird.
metal claws come out of your hands, but then I realized that he's not even a.
Hey, they were bone claws first.
Yeah, they were
Then
bone
he-
claws.
Then he got the skeleton.
All right, can we just like hit on how cool that is? Like at first, like, you literally have bones that like extend out of your hand, like.
But it
that's
hurts
pretty-
every time.
Yeah.
but he
'cause
also
they're-
he heals every time he puts back in because he has regenerative
It's
healing.
true.
Yeah.
It's fucking wild.
I remember playing an X-Men game on the Game Boy Advance, and he had a passive that let him heal very slowly. So whenever I fought bosses, I'd hide in a corner and heal up to full health.
It's the way to do it, man.
If we're willing to change topics on the same trend of DNA,
Go for it.
I took a class this semester in digital forensics, which the basic gist of it is like, let's say someone commits a cyber crime. I'm saying that.
Would you steal a car?
Right. Let's say
You wouldn't download a car.
Let's say
That's what
someone
it is.
steals a bunch of money electronically and they get a warrant for it. The class is like how to gather the data in a way that you can present it to a judge, essentially, and make it safe so that like it doesn't look like you've tampered with it.
Interesting.
But one of the topics that we touched on was like being able to store data in DNA and how it actually you could essentially have your whole entire life on like a USB stick if we make the technology like cheaper and more available, because you can store infinitely amount more data than our current system of ones and zeros. You can just literally convert that to A's, C's, T's, and G's.
I saw like this fact that you could fit like the entire like knowledge base of like the human race, I think, in like a teaspoon or something like that. Like something
Right.
absolutely absurd.
So, I mean, I think that's super fascinating because, I mean, think about it right now. Dayton, I know you have like 5 fucking hard drives in your computer right now.
I think it's 4 right now, but
Okay.
yeah, it used to be 5.
Imagine having something the size of like your fingernail, it's even smaller, have every bit of data in your entire life, like on you. That would just change everything.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's like
So
more work to be done on it, but like the concept itself, I think is just so fascinating. To just be like, I don't know, right over a part of like your pinky nail, and then all of a sudden you have your entire life, like you have every picture you've ever taken in your life, every piece of music you've ever loved, like any of that shit, just literally in your hand.
just 'cause so DNA is like desirable just because it's so small. It's not even that it's efficient. 'Cause it's not, in my opinion, it's not that efficient.
I don't know how well the read and write speeds are, but as far as like amount of storage, it's more.
I wonder if that must have pretty significant implications for like body enhancements or like neural implants or stuff like that, right? Like,
Oh yeah,
What do you
Cyberpunk
mean?
2077.
yeah.
What do you
Right?
mean by
Like-
that, Dayton? Like,
if you're able to like store all like that memory, and like let's say like if it's able to become like super small, right? Like you can fit the entirety of like the program or whatever it is that you're trying to like enhance your body with, and like a millimeter by millimeter like square or something like that, then that becomes a lot less invasive for you.
Well, you could have all your medical data like on your body.
That too. Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about that.
And even like if you think about it, like server farms and like think of like a Google Drive server and just imagine, or server farm, and imagine how big that is, and just being able to condense that by I mean I couldn't tell you like the fraction.
see,
But-
that's where I think it'll go. I don't think it'll go into like you have it on your person. It's like everything's still connected wirelessly, but the server farm is just way smaller.
Right, but
it's using that
just
kind of.
imagine the environmental
storage.
impact difference.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
it's based off DNA. Like you can replace that infinitely. It's organic, and it literally, like we were saying before, it fixes itself. Like it if like let's say it copied a bit that was wrong, in a computer when it copies a bit wrong, there are some things that try and fix it, but the body already has, or DNA in general already has a process that fixes that for you. You know, like, you don't even need to like write it. It just does it. I don't know. This is super.
Yeah,
weird.
I'm just trying to think about how we would control it, cause like, I'm also so DNA it itself isn't like alive. It's an organic molecule, but it's not like alive, right?
Yeah.
But it probably needs certain environmental conditions to not break down, right?
Well, it can't be too warm. Specifically.
Yeah, it needs certain conditions, and also all the enzymes that we would need to read it and fix it and keep it and probably duplicate it. I don't know how it would work. Those all need certain conditions.
Yeah, I don't know how it'd be stored.
I see. I don't know how it would be
In
stored,
my
and
mind,
also
it's like
how
a fishbowl.
data be extracted.
It's just a goop.
Yeah. it's
Oh.
a big
Like I don't
old-
understand how you'd read it unless you had like a man-made enzyme that you could also access with computers.
See,
I can't understand how you connect the organic to the technical.
I get what you're saying, and I just
To
don't think it's
machine.
there yet for me to give you an answer.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, it's fascinating. I'm just trying to think how that might possibly work.
I don't know. The best like the way I imagine it is you like make a query, right? And that somehow constructs an enzyme or a protein that looks for that pattern, right? And converts what you're looking for, human readable format, into binary, and then converts that into A, T, C's, and G's. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and it's also like, and how fast is all this happening? Which is probably pretty fucking fast.
And
with
performance is
DNAs.
going to be a huge factor too, right? Like it needs
Yeah.
to be able to perform for it to be commercially viable.
Yeah.
It's
It's
just
just fascinating.
it's an interesting concept though.
If we ever use nucleotides to store information,
And you
Yeah,
just save
it's
so
wild.
much space and energy.
and also if you have to add on new data at any given time.
Yeah, I guess I haven't thought of that. Maybe it's a good
But it's-
maybe it could just be useful for like long-term storage. You know what I mean? Like
I mean, it's not that hard to add on to DNA.
yeah.
And that's what CRISPR
wouldn't
is
know too
also,
much
you
about
know. It's all just like bond breaking and bond forming, which is
Because
too.
the current method for saving data long term is cassette tapes, and they're still around, believe it or not. They are slow as dog shit. They're slow as fuck, but they live forever. Like hard drives, spinning disks die pretty quickly, like longevity wise. but tapes can live forever because they're just slower and I don't know. Something
like
about
solid state though.
Solid states don't live very long.
Yeah.
They don't in terms of like, you know, tapes and discs, they just don't last as long. Like they degrade. But cassettes, if they're in the correct conditions, can live up to 20, 30
well, stuff
years.
like
cassettes
vinyls
are a
too,
lot
right?
more temperature
Right.
dependent.
I mean, I can look it up real quick.
Like I feel like vinyls are pretty good too, because that's like it's a physical thing versus either an electrical or a magnetic.
So
phenomenon.
tape can last up to 30 years.
That's not even that long.
As far as
feel like-
digital storage is pretty fucking good though.
But I feel like if you got a hard drive and you just didn't use the hard drive and you just kept it away, it'd probably be fine.
Right, but what good is it unplugged when you're needing to access it all the time? I'm thinking like businesses, right? Like they need these like medical records and shit.
Oh, I thought you were saying if like we wanted like stored data for like, I don't know, like a doomsday event or something like that.
I mean, a lot of cold storage you still need access to it though. Like you still need a terminal that can access it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like let's say you make a backup of somewhere. Like if something did happen and the primary site died, you still need to be able to copy it over the internet to something. So you need to constantly be checking that it's running. So
that's fair.
Yeah, it's gonna be a big issue we have to deal with, because I mean I was talking to one of my dad's friends works at Seagate, and I was talking to him a while ago, and they're obviously a hard drive company, so they're trying to always, you know, innovate in hard drives and more space in a smaller area. And because he's like, yeah, I mean, in the smartphone and internet age, the amount of data that's being generated is just absolutely skyrocketing exponentially, and that has to be stored somewhere. And eventually we'll just straight up run out of space, physical space to put it, because, you know, whenever you upload something to Google, it goes to a server somewhere, right? So
yeah, and it's like you can do two things. You can innovate on the storage aspect, or you can innovate on the compression side of things. Like how are you condensing it? You know, like zip 2. I don't know. You gotta,
how much quality are you losing with that compression?
Right, and you got lossy, and then you got lossless compression, right? So you got like FLAC, which is an audio file format that you can copy that a million times and it won't lose any quality. But if you're copying an MP3, there's a good chance you're losing some quality there.
A lot.
Well, it's like that MKBHD video, right, Joseph?
Yeah, he did a video where he uploaded and downloaded the same video 1,000 times.
Probably looked like dog shit by the end.
It took a while, but it looked really bad, and it was funny because it had been done by someone else like
10 years ago or something like that.
Was it 10? I thought it was more recent.
Did it look better than it did 10 years ago?
No.
Oh, well, that was the thing. Is like 10 years ago, it went to shit instantly, and then like it hit a plateau of shit. And but the more recent one that MKBHD did, it like took a while for it to like actually be bad, and then.
I mean, it's obviously gotten better, but like.
Yeah.
Very quick rundown of compression. Let's say you take a photo and the top right corner is black. The program will take it and be like, grids this top corner to this pixel are this approximately, like they average out to this value of black. So then it condenses all of those and writes a map that's like this pixel is about this color black. But when you start downloading it 1,000 times, it's going to start trying to make that smaller, and then it's going to try to make that smaller, and then that
just like averages out all the pixels.
Right,
and so it's really interesting, and like it did that with each frame. So it'd be really interesting where the background didn't degrade very much, but when he's moving, that's what degraded, and he would like move his hand like over the background, and you would see it like shit itself for a second, but then it would snap back to good quality. It was really interesting.
Once he stopped moving,
Yeah. And like there would be a frame where he would like sit still for like 2 or 3 frames in a row, and his face would like come back and like
What's
be really
the name
clear.
Of this video? I haven't seen it before. It sounds
I
pretty cool.
uploaded and downloaded a video 1,000 times. I don't know.
It's not that old. It's like a month, 2 months old. Let's go to his channel. You can see it.
Okay.
Yeah. It was really good. We should probably link it into the description of this podcast.
I'll try to link the Veritasium video too. Make a note.
Yeah.
Veritasium.
Yeah, but honestly, Dayton brought up a really interesting point, which is kind of different, but vinyl records and like how they work
Isn't
is
that all
fucking
grooves?
mind blowing. Yeah, it's just vibration or like grooves, and like the fact that they were able to get stereo sound out of it doesn't make sense because it's a single groove with a single needle, and somehow it puts sound in the left and the right speaker, different sounds in those left and right speaker. Like, that doesn't fucking make sense. And like, I looked it up, it's a single needle. It's like just there's like 2 zones on the needle, and when it like bounces off the side of the record,
It'll do a
it
left.
it just makes the
So
sound.
it's actually like the wall. So like if you imagine like a V, right? Then there's gonna be like this side, which might be like your left channel, and then this side, which is your right
Yeah,
channel.
that's what it is, and that just
Oh.
has like little waves in it, and like it's fucking ridiculous. Like the technology is mind blowing to me. Where it's like, okay, digital makes sense. Like you can you read the ones and zeros off a disc or whatever, but like this analog shit is ridiculous.
See, when I took a class on so I took the first CNSA course I took was like on computers and like just the gist of how they work. Towards the end, we talked about CDs and DVDs, and I remember them explaining to us that when it writes something to a CD, it will like burn in a 1 essentially, so it'd be like a groove for a 1 and nothing for a 0.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my classmates is like, well, what if you rewrite the CD? Like, does the 1 get unburnt? Like, how does that work? And he's like, I don't know. Like, I just don't know how that works. I've never looked it up, like what the answer
Right,
is.
But yeah,
It's the
that's why
same
they called
concept,
it, like-
it's just more condensed and it's more digitized. And
They're
it's
But, like-
different technologies. Like, so you have like CDs, and you have CDRs, and then you have
Right.
Yeah.
So some of them you can't
CDRWs.
right. Some of you can't rewrite. So
Yeah.
what I think he was trying to say is the original ones. That's how it worked.
Yeah, I
Right.
didn't even know that. I assumed all CDs were rewritable.
No.
Well, so
No,
I mean, hard drives work in a similar way, where like
That's
obviously
Those are
it's a magnetic
those are
platter,
magnetic.
and then you give it a charge for a 1 and like no charge for a 0.
Yep.
Like the concept from like a record player and a hard drive
Oh, there's-
have not
it,
changed
like,
all that much.
but that's the thing is like they're incredibly different. Like it seems like they're similar because like okay, it's a disc, and
And it
like
rotates.
there's a needle.
there's
kinda
a
thing.
rotates and there's a head that reads the data,
Mm-hmm.
but like the way it reads the data is just
Vastly
worlds apart. Like
Right.
it's not a similar idea. Like because it's not like there's I don't know. Like it's hitting the sides and that's making the sound. Like if you play a record player, you turn it on, not connected to speakers, and you put your ear towards the needle, you can hear it. Like it makes the sound of the music. I'm not shitting you because I've done this before. And it is the most wild thing. I don't get it. It doesn't make
See,
sense.
what I was
What's
trying to
crazier
get
to
at-
me?
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Gabe.
Oh,
Okay, well, the crazier thing to me with that is not even how the gramophone works. It's how do they make the vinyl? Like
the
when you
exact
record-
opposite process. Okay, so how a microphone works is most of them are like capacitor microphones. So your voice moves moves one of the
The
plates of the
diaphragm, right?
capacitor, yeah, and it changes the charge, and it does
Yeah.
that. So that charge shifts the needle on vinyl because they record it on vinyl. It's the master copy, and it shakes the needle and makes I don't know if it makes the groove or maybe the groove's already no, it makes the groove, and then they set like how wide the grooves are spaced, but based on how long like the record's gonna be, but that like the shaking of the microphone essentially moves the needle in such a way that it etches it into the record.
Wait,
And
but
then
I
they
thought
just, like,
I thought
copy and paste it.
microphones were piezoelectronic.
Okay,
I don't think so, Dayton. That
there's
seems like
different microphone
That seems way too
technology.
complicated for microphones.
Well, all right. So I know that
Yeah, explain.
hydrophones, which are underwater microphones, are
Yep.
made with piezoelectronics. So that's like ceramics that when there's a stress applied to them, that they give off a voltage, which is then measured and then corresponding to, some other fancy
That
electronic
very
shit.
well could be the case now, but I'm saying like original microphones were capacitor mics. I don't know. I'm not well versed in microphone technology. That's
Yeah,
like the
neither am I.
basic. That's like the basic like microphone, I guess, is a capacitor mic.
PS electronics are cool too because it works the opposite way. If you apply a voltage, it'll move, or it'll change shape. 'Cause that's how we were in characterization 2 dating at Tech. Isn't that how the AFM machine works? That's how they move the needle. Because it's on it's on like nanoscale. They have to move this needle very precisely. So they use piezoelectronics to apply voltage and it'll move it in a very small increments. Pretty sure.
Maybe.
People are way more smart than I'll ever be, man.
It honestly makes me feel bad for getting an engineering degree because there's these other engineers that are just like fucking blowing me out of the water.
Well, you think of that stuff, like people, it takes so little people, like phones even. Some, like probably a handful of people, like let's figure this out. And then everybody uses them, right? Like this just weird, minute technology that they exploit to like make something work. And then everyone else uses them, like how does it work? They're like, I don't know. You know?
But also like smartphones weren't invented in a vacuum. Like there was years and years and years of technology and innovations that led
Right,
us
but
that.
they
Like,
were able to push past that shit, you know? Like, okay, we have this problem. All right, now what are we going to use to get around this, you know?
Yeah.
Like you even see
I'm
that
just saying, like everything
example.
builds upon everything else.
Right, but like camera technology, like digital cameras have gotten so much better just by using the software, not specifically how
Yeah.
big the lens is, but they're like,
Yeah.
wait, what if we exploit using the code to like adjust to be able to, you know, like even night sight and like on Android phones, I don't know what the name of it is on Apple phones, that can detect when it's a low light environment and it'll automatically make the not shutter
Adjustments.
speed. Well, I guess it would be shutter speed. It makes the shutter speed longer, so it can collect more light.
And a couple other things.
And
but
I mean,
yeah.
obviously, there's some digital tricks there too, but it's just like
Well, that's why like in the Pixel phones, like Google has proprietary processing technology, which is why their
right.
sensors aren't as good as like an Apple or a Samsung,
Like
but their image
programming.
qualities
Right.
is
But you
comparable.
you almost never see a phone camera above 12 megapixels. Like the, other than
Yeah.
like the couple like, I don't know what. There's a phone that just came out that was like 128 megapixels, which is like really
Yeah, it's
cool.
fucking nuts.
It's really it like looks fine, but you zoom in and that's when you can really see the detail in it, which
Mhm.
is like okay. But if I'm not like zooming in, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
You know.
But that's what I'm
It's
saying. Like technology like that shit just explodes because people find these weird ways to make it better. Like you can make the telephone, whatever, Alexander Graham Bell, whatever, fuck you. But then you come up with things like Wi-Fi calling that makes it so much better, you know, by using another existing technology or combining another technology with it.
Mhm.
It's just super cool to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that was a lot of technology and science we talked about, which was good.
Mhm.
Thanks for listening to us for 50 episodes. We stuck out the entire time. We're gonna be on hiatus for a few weeks over Christmas because we didn't have enough time to record a bunch of episodes to roll out. So
And
we should
Gabe
be
was
back.
quote unquote busy with finals.
Finals,
come on,
moving,
Gabe.
you know, transporting my whole life near you so we can hang out, you fuck.
Sounds like a crock of shit to me. I don't know.
Alright.
We'll be back on January 13th when we'll be doing the year compass again. So look forward to that, and maybe do one yourself if you want. Look back on 2019 and then look forward to 2020. See how we can improve. So yeah, we'll see you then. Again, don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at EWF Podcast, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.